All right, let's get right into it. When you think of Greenland, what comes to mind? Probably this massive, empty island of ice, right? For literally centuries, it was kind of off the map, not really a big player. But that has all changed. Right now, it's become this quiet, frozen battleground in a new global power struggle. And if you want proof of just how high the stakes are, look no further than this quote. We are going to do something about Greenland, whether they like it or not. I mean, wow. That's not just political chatter. That's a massive signal of just how intense the pressure is, and it puts Greenland squarely in the global spotlight. So the big question is, why? How did this island, with a population smaller than a lot of towns, we're talking just 57,000 people, suddenly become this object of obsession for the world's biggest superpowers? Well, the answer is this perfect storm of geography, what's under the ice, and our rapidly changing climate. It's a mix that's turning this frozen land into a geopolitical hotspot. So let's break this down. To really get why everyone's scrambling for Greenland, we have to look at what makes it so valuable. And it's not just one single thing. It's actually a trifecta of strategic factors that make it an absolutely critical piece on the 21st century chessboard. Okay, it really boils down to three big things. First, its military location is just unbelievably strategic. Second, there's a literal treasure trove of natural resources hidden under all that ice. And third, it holds the keys to the future of global shipping. So let's tackle that first one, its location. Okay, so location, location, location. Think back to the Cold War. The US figured out pretty quickly that the shortest flight path for any Soviet missiles was right over the Arctic. That made Greenland basically America's front porch, the first line of defense. And at the heart of all this is something called the GI-UK gap. That stands for Greenland, Iceland, and the United Kingdom. It's a massive naval choke point. Whoever controls that gap controls access to the entire North Atlantic. For the US, the idea of a rival controlling that, it's simply a non-starter. Absolutely unthinkable. All right, reason number two, resources. And we're not talking about gold or diamonds here. We're talking about something way more critical in the modern world, rare earth minerals. Now, these things are the secret ingredients that power, well, everything. They're in the smartphone in your pocket, the laptop you're working on. But here's the kicker. They are absolutely essential for the most advanced military tech. We're talking everything from F-35 fighter jets to precision missile guidance systems. And this is where the global power struggle gets really, really clear. Right now, China basically has a stranglehold on the world's supply of these minerals. They control about 85% of the supply chain. That means the US and all of its allies are dangerously dependent on them. But Greenland is thought to have one of the biggest untapped deposits of these rare earths on the planet. It represents a golden opportunity to break China's monopoly. So you see, this isn't just about economics. It's a massive national security vulnerability that everyone is desperate to fix. And finally, the third piece of the puzzle is the future of global trade itself. Look, it's no secret the Arctic is melting, and it's melting fast. As that ice disappears, brand new shipping lanes are opening up for the first time in human history. They're calling them polar silk roads, and they could slash the time it takes to get goods from Asia to Europe. So, the country that controls Greenland, they'll have enormous sway over these brand new, super important arteries of global commerce. So who are the main players in this high-stakes game? Well, it's the big three, the United States, Russia, and China. And you better believe each one has its own playbook for the Arctic, with Greenland sitting right in the middle of their competing ambitions. Let's look at the breakdown. For the US, it's all about national security, and, like we said, getting out from under China's thumb when it comes to rare earths. Their moves are pretty blunt, trying to buy the island outright, blocking Chinese money from getting in. Then you've got Russia. With their huge Arctic coastline, they see the whole region as their backyard, and they're beefing up their military presence, reopening old Soviet-era bases. And then there's China. They don't have any Arctic territory, so they've cleverly called themselves a near-Arctic state. Their strategy is all about money and influence, pushing their Polar Silk Road initiative by investing heavily in Greenland's future. But you know, this whole thing didn't just pop up overnight. This intense interest in Greenland has deep roots. To really understand what's happening now, we need to take a quick trip back in time and see how foreign powers have been eyeing this island for a long, long time. Okay, rapid-fire history lesson. It all starts way back in the 10th century with the Viking Eric the Red. He's the one who gave it the genius, if slightly misleading name, Greenland, to try and get people to move there. Jump forward to 1814, it's officially a Danish colony. But its modern story really begins in World War II, when the US sets up military bases there. Then, get this, right after the war in 1946, President Truman literally offers to buy it for $100 million in gold. Denmark said no. But the biggest game changer comes in 2009. That's when Greenland gets self-rule. And this is key, control over its own natural resources. And that, right there, sets the stage for everything that's happening today. And that brings us right back to today, and to a future that's looking pretty uncertain. In fact, the source material we're looking at lays out a hypothetical scenario, but it's a deeply worrying one of how all this competition could boil over into a massive international crisis. We can't forget who's actually at the heart of all this: the people of Greenland. They're totally caught in the middle. On one hand, a huge majority, we're talking 85%, want full independence from Denmark. But here's the dilemma. When they're faced with the idea of being taken over by a superpower like the US, they'd much rather stay with Denmark. Why? To protect their identity, their culture. They want to be their own country, not just a pawn or a strategic military base for someone else.
Okay, and this is where things could get really dangerous. Let's just play out the hypothetical scenario from the sources. Step 1. Imagine the US gets fed up and issues an ultimatum to get control of Greenland. Step 2. In response, America's own NATO allies in Europe, Denmark, France, Germany, send troops to defend Greenland's sovereignty. All of a sudden, you have a situation that could literally tear the NATO alliance apart, with members pointing guns at each other. It's a nightmare scenario, and the only people who would benefit are America's biggest rivals. So when you boil it all down, this is the fundamental conflict, right? On one side, you've got the 57,000 people of Greenland who just want the right to decide their own future. And on the other side, you have these giant global superpowers who see the island as a prize, a critical piece of real estate on the global chessboard. And so that leaves us with the big, hanging question. As Greenland's ice melts away, revealing both incredible riches and ancient rivalries, what happens next? Does Greenland get the independence it so desperately wants? Does it get swallowed up by a foreign power? Or could this giant, frozen island become the unlikely spark for a new global conflict? The future is anything but certain, and the answer is still being written on the ice.